You're now over 200 employees. How do you get everyone aligned and everyone on the same page? How do you coordinate your actions across so many different people? What's the role of structure in that aspect?
In the early days, there's a lot of chaos, but there's a lot of passion. And you create a vibe that it's a vibe of success. But how do you keep that vibe of success, and how do you step away from the chaos into a 200 people company? I think the one thing that is important is make sure that you set the right values. We have 7 values in the business, and that those values live throughout your organization, even if you're building offices in other countries in Europe. I think those values need to live, and as such, it's already a good platform for people to understand how you want your business to roll, basically. The other thing that we're doing, we work a lot with OKRs, so it's objectives and key results. This is basically framing what are my key objectives, not only for the business, but in my team, what are the key objectives for this quarter, and what are some of the key results that we're going to measure. And every quarter, each lead, each manager sits with his teams to really understand what are we going to do this quarter. And all of these key objectives have to line up with the global objective, which we basically set at the start of the year. And then every quarter we have alignment meetings. We get 200 people on the call. It's always very exciting. And those meetings really serve to reiterate why are we here, what are we doing, and if you're not doing anything that is serving that bigger objective, then we should have a conversation, basically.
Put very nicely.
Very nicely. Yeah.
And so you mentioned values. So I'm wondering now, of course, what are those values? And maybe when did you start with defining those values? Because it gets at company culture. So how do you kind of see the role of those values?
Yeah, we defined them from day one. Don't ask me how, but we were entrepreneurs and we said, these are the things that we were dreaming of. If we ever have a big business, we want to build a business that looks like this. I'll give you a couple of examples. One of the values is sniffing out the way. Sniffing out the way means that you're allowed to go the extra mile to try something new that you think could be very relevant to grow the business. And take that initiative, bring it to the team, and let's evaluate if that could work on a broader scale. Something else would be around be more dog. This is around the way we treat people. Take initiative to create something nice for your colleague, to make sure if you're onboarding somebody that this person feels welcome straight away. And those are just 2 examples of the 7 values, and I think we spend a lot of time on it, and we should continue to make them live throughout the organization. From time to time we have value awards, so it happens that we do some value shout outs on that quarterly call, and then we ask somebody, hey, does somebody wants to speak up and congratulate somebody because he or she is living up to that value? What is that example?
You lived in the US for a couple of years, and when we talk about scale-ups, and I would say probably entrepreneurship in general, the US is often looked at as kind of this promised land. Anything that we in Europe can learn from the US, or the other way around maybe?
Yeah, you're right. I spent about 5 years of my career before Edgard Cooper in the United States, and I think the big difference is the obvious one. The US has a huge domestic market. So if I would have started Edgard Cooper in the United States, we probably had been 10 times the size, right? Europe, in contrast, is a lot more fragmented. But I think what is unique about Europe is, for example, around the commitments towards sustainability, the commitments towards the regulatory work around the environment. I think we're way ahead of the United States. So I think where the US has also that entrepreneurial, risk-taking sort of ethos, which is maybe a bit less in Europe. It's a bit more about work-life. I think we can learn from each other. The US should probably adopt a lot more of the regulatory frameworks around environment and sustainability and take huge quantum steps from that point of view. But at the same time, in Europe, let's continue to embrace entrepreneurship. Let's continue to build frameworks and policies that support the ambition that we have as entrepreneurs.
And when you say frameworks and policies, I'm of course also thinking of us. What do we do, or what do we have to do to get that percentage, which at this point I think it's only around 10% of all firms that are actually achieving some level of high growth. What can we do to get that number up?
Yeah, that's a broad question. It usually is around money and education, I would say. subsidizing early scale-ups or startups, let's say, that have an innovative idea that can really be very meaningful for society as a whole. Education, I think Vlerick is a great example, of course, because you're very focused on entrepreneurship. But I think it always boils down to how do we educate our young people, and how do we support those younger startups and scale-ups from a financial point of view, maybe also from a knowledge point of view. How do we connect European countries with each other to learn from each other? There's a lot of work that we can do, to be honest.
And I see that as a personal appeal to try and help educate some of those bright entrepreneurial minds for the future. Thank you, Jurgen, for having joined us. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you very much.